Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie, here with Sports Beastie, my little secondary YouTube page. And boy, oh boy, do we have a treat for you today. On Saturday, there is back-to-back football games, and everything kicks off 1 p.m. on Saturday with the Indianapolis Colts heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And don't look now, but Baltimore is playing in Cleveland tonight at 4:30, and then we get the snow game. Miami is at Buffalo at 8:15. Hold your horses. There's going to be a separate video for each game, just giving you a little rundown here, as I like to do. Maybe I got too many Beastie jerseys in the back here, but hey, it's that's in my name. It's in my it's at the YouTube channel. So hey, here we go. Let's kick this sucker off. No promos, no nothing. We're gonna get right deep and down and dirty to this DFS stuff, and I have a few plans and things I want to talk about in each game, but specifically the Indianapolis Colts in Minnesota. When we look at this one so far, the over/under right now is at 47.5 points. Right now, Minnesota is like minus 3.5 points, which to me and any other sports bettors, we would find that weak, right? When you look at Minnesota and the Colts, they're headed in opposite directions. When we look at the Colts right now, they were on bye. I got all these notes here. They were on bye in week 14, but in week 13, the Dallas Cowboys absolutely smashed them. I think Dallas hung 50-something points. They had, what was it, 385 yards of total offense here. So the Colts, fresh up their bye week, I mean, truth be told, they might still be licking their wounds. I mean, 54-19 loss. That takes more than 1 week and a bye week to get over here, and all the yards of offense they allowed. But hey, they come in and take on Minnesota, who, if I may say so, I've never been the biggest Minnesota Viking fan. We know where my allegiance lies, the Detroit Lions here, and they're surging, but this isn't about the Lions, it's about the Vikings. And let's just call it what it is. Did they take a beating? Did they take a drubbing at home against the Lions in week 14? I think so, but I'm biased, right? I never let that homerism kind of get in the way here. Actually, Minnesota was in Detroit. I take that back. So wherever the breaks were beaten off of, they're probably still in Detroit somewhere. But when we dig into this game from a DFS perspective, there's a lot to like, and there's a lot to go, I don't know too much about that. And let's start off with the quarterback, shall we? And we're going to talk about Matt Ryan. Back thrusted into the spotlight after he was, pulled from the starting gig. They gave Sam Ehlinger some playing time, and with only God only knows what happened. Maybe some injuries and maybe some foul play. Let's say not foul play like in a detective movie, but just not playing good. And it's Matt Ryan's gig once again. And come to find out, the Minnesota Vikings right now 28th overall against opposing quarterbacks. And what's the case that Minnesota, if they win here today, they can clinch the NFC North? And again, the Lions are like 3.5 games back. There's only like 4 games left in the season, so I'm not in any way predicting that the Vikings won't win the North, but I wonder if they were kind of on cruise control last week when they lost to the Lions, and they're going to have to really kick it into high gear come playoff time, because that kind of play, they're going to be out in the first round, and they have 10 wins right now, and they look good. But let's start with Matt Ryan. As I said, Minnesota 28th overall against opposing quarterbacks. We're looking at Matt Ryan 14-5 on FanDuel, $9,000 on DraftKings. I have Matt Ryan, a great night, right? 24-25 completions, 280 yards, a carry or two. He's Old Man River. I think Matt Ryan and I are the same age, but he'll look to move once or twice for like 8 to 10 yards, and I have him for 1 touchdown pass. On the flip side here, Kirk Cousins, Mr. Ho-Hum, Mr. Boring, is really getting it done when we need it the most in seasonal formats, in dynasty formats, whatever it is. Matt Ryan is a very good, he's better than a serviceable quarterback. And Kirk Cousins against the Colts, they are 12th overall against opposing quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, $15,000 on FanDuel, $10,000 on DraftKings. I'm expecting Kirk 23-24 completions, 250 yards, 2 to 3 carries, same thing as Matt Ryan, 8 to 10 yards, but 2 touchdown passes here. So there's a difference of 1 touchdown and 2 touchdowns here. When we look at the running backs here, Jonathan Taylor, he was all the rage heading into the season. I know I probably use that phrase or that saying every time the Colts are on a primetime game here, but Jonathan Taylor against Minnesota. Minnesota's 15th overall against opposing running backs here, so literally middle of the pack here. Jonathan Taylor, $16,000 on FanDuel, $10,400 on DraftKings. And when you look at JT, 20 carries, 85 to 90 yards, fingers crossed, 3 to 4 receptions for another 35 yards. And I do have Jonathan Taylor locked in for a touchdown. So you're looking at 85 plus 35, 8, 9, 10, 11, plus the 5 and the 5. You're looking at 120 total yards, all-purpose yards here, and a touchdown. I would say that's a great game, but when you look at his price tag on FanDuel, it's a little whacked out and it's high. And there's only one guy on the slate that's this one here that's only higher than him, and we'll get to that. I know who it is. It's it's Justin Jefferson, excuse me. Deion Jackson, not much going on there. He filled in admirably in spots when Jonathan Taylor was out. Deion Jackson, 6'5" on FanDuel, 4'8" on DK. The only move to make with Deion Jackson here is if we think, the Colts are going to get behind quick, and they're going to have to get, different personnel in there, in and out, moving them in, moving them out kind of thing. Jonathan Taylor will be in there a majority of the time, but what are the chances? Deion Jackson, 2 to 3 carries for about 10 yards. I have him for a reception or two for another 10 yards. What are the chances that, in certain packages, right? If things are flowing, Deion Jackson gets a series to himself, not on purpose, but just the way the game is moving, and Matt Ryan finds a zone, and he's going great on a drive. They leave Deion Jackson, and what can be done here? Do I think that is going to happen in real life? Not really, but this is DFS, and it's a single game, and it's a Saturday, and it's week 15. I mean, anything can happen. You got to be a real wild man or girl or degenerate to be playing single game slates here. And what does that make me? Doing all this paperwork in broadcasting about this game. So, hey. As we move on, Dalvin Cook for the Minnesota Vikings against Indianapolis. The Colts 25th overall against opposing running backs here. Dalvin Cook, $14,000 on FanDuel, $10,200 on DK. Everybody was not up in arms, but everybody made their stance known on social media on Sunday when Minnesota lost to Detroit. His stat line wasn't all that good. Is Dalvin Cook that surefire RB1 that we've been used to all these years in a row? Can we count on Dalvin Cook for 20 carries, 85 yards? I have Cook 2 receptions for another 20 yards. So you're looking at just shy of 110 all-purpose yards, but I do have him locked in for a touchdown as well. So that was last week. This is now Saturday, week 15. We'll see what we can get Dalvin Cook. I would say he's a must-have here, given the DVP and given what the Colts have given away. They say this time of year, we're going to take what the defense gives us, and I have the Colts to really give like it's Thanksgiving here in this one. Alexander Mattinson, just in case, 7.5 on FanDuel, $5,000 on DK, looking at 3 to 4 carries. 12 yards and a reception or two for another 10 yards, just to change a pace guy. If you're going to max enter a single entry, something like that, have at it with Alexander Mattinson. When we look at the wide receivers, now we're talking, this is the space that I find that the Colts can really get through and get over on the Vikings. And let's start with Michael Pittman, Minnesota, right now 30th overall against opposing wide receivers. Pittman Jr., $12,000 on FanDuel, 8.4 on DK, 9-10 targets, 6-7 receptions, 75 yards or so. So Pittman, his price tag is very reasonable in my book. So to me, he's highlighted. He needs to be part of our plans here. If you're only going to play, a handful of lines here, the single game slate. Paris Campbell, $10,000 on FanDuel, 6.2 on DK, 6-7 targets, 4 or 5 receptions, about 50 yards. So Paris Campbell also making his way into the list of players that I think warrant our attention on the slate. Alec Pierce, the young kid, FanDuel. He's $8,000 on DraftKings, $5,600, and I have Pierce 5-6 targets, 3-4 receptions, about 45 yards. So realistically, call me crazy, I might make a lineup with a trio of Indianapolis Colts wide receivers just to see what can happen, because the Minnesota Vikings, their secondary is leaky. They're 30th overall. There can be some holes had in the secondary, and I think that Matt Ryan and their coaches there, if I know it, you know it, and the Indianapolis Colts, know it. So let's hammer home Colts wide receivers. Ashton Dulin, not much going on. 1 to 2 targets, 1 to 2 receptions, about 8 to 10 yards. He's not seeing a lot of playing time. Had Alex Pierce been out or Paris Campbell, we could bump up Dulin, but that's not the case. When we look at the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers, it's got to be all about Justin Jefferson. But the only rub here, and I don't even think that it's a rub with him. I mean, he's a stone cold stud. He's setting all these organizational records, and it's only halfway, I would say almost through a second year of his career with the Vikings, and he's already smashing records that have been set for all 30, 40 years. That's not the make of a special talent here, but that is certainly kind of pleads our case that Justin Jefferson is a stone cold stud. When we look at Jefferson, the only rub I was getting at is the Colts' second overall against opposing wide receivers. To me, doesn't matter with Justin Jefferson. $17,000 on FanDuel, the most expensive player on this slate. 11.4 on DK, 10-11 targets, 7-8 receptions, 100 yards and a touchdown. That is commonplace now with Justin Jefferson. So you're either in or you're out. You're going to get left behind if you fade him too much. In a way, if you've been playing single game slates for a long time, you can see this thing and go, well, the only move here is to fade the studs, right? So that's the only way if we're going to play 100 lines, 100 entries in a contest, in a massive GPP where 150 max entries are the key here. If you want to fade Justin Jefferson just to say you faded him just in case, then that's your move here. But I'm telling you now, we know what to expect. 100 yards and a touchdown makes for a nice little anytime touchdown parlay with Dalvin Cook, with Jonathan Taylor, the three studs. You're like, well, Chris, you're not telling us anything profound. I could go to any dummy on the corner who would give me that advice. But hey, let's lock it in and see what happens here. On the flip, I'm not on the flip side, but Adam Thielen here, old trusty, we'll call him. He's $10,500 on FanDuel, $7,000 on DK, 7-8 targets, 5-6 receptions, 50 yards. There's going to be a time, another game or two where Adam Thielen hangs 2 touchdowns, 100 yards and multiple touchdowns here. Is it going to be this week? I doubt it, given the DVP of the Colts here, but Adam Thielen needs to be on our radar. He is still in this high up in this pecking order of the Minnesota Vikings offense. So fade at your own risk with Adam Thielen. I have him locked in a few lineups. KJ Osborne, 8-5 on FanDuel, 5-2 on DK, 4-5 targets, 3-4 receptions, about 30 yards. And Jalen Reagor, how laughable is that? All the nonsense he said last week, only to not register, not even one target, not a catch, not a yard, nothing. But this kid is a big play waiting to happen. Will they utilize that? We will see. What if Justin Jefferson, Thielen, and Osborne are getting all this action and Kirk Cousins or the offensive coordinator sees something he likes for 1 or 2 plays, and boom, Jalen Reagor gets behind this defense here for 30 or 40 yards. What happens if it's a touchdown here? We got to just keep those little, this is what goes on in my mind all the time. All the studs are here. What are we going to do with Jalen? What are the chances Reagor gets around the secondary for a 30, 40 yard touchdown? Yeah, it's in my head is nuts. That's why I write everything down and I try and tell it all to you, because it makes me, when I go to bed at night, finally I got a clear conscience because I said everything I had to on these single game slate videos. When we look at the tight ends here, nothing really good going on for the Colts. Jelani Woods, Kyle Granderson. When we look at Woods here, maybe the only move to make here on FanDuel. He's $6,000 on DraftKings, $3,000, 4 or 5 targets, 3-4 receptions, about 30 yards. Granderson, $6,000 on FanDuel, $2,200 on DK, 3-4 targets, 2-3 receptions, 20 yards. It gets interesting when we get to TJ Hockenson here. The Colts 14th overall against opposing tight ends, and we've seen TJ Hawk come over from Detroit to Minnesota and instantly kind of elevate himself in the tight end room or the tight end status across the league. And he's kind of not weaseled, he works hard. TJ Hockenson has worked his way up this pecking order, and personally it goes Justin Jefferson. And as it stands right now, I think TJ Hockenson and Dalvin Cook are like 2A and 2B. They're right there behind Justin Jefferson. So TJ Hockenson, I believe he caught 5 or 6 passes last week against the Lions. Let's see what he does here. He's 11-5 on FanDuel, 6-6 on DK, 7-8 targets, 5 or 6 receptions, again 50 plus yards. Does he lock in that? Does he score that touchdown? If you want to add that to the parlay, that would make it really juicy and spicy. By any means, go ahead. Johnny Munt, nothing crazy, 1-2 targets, 1-2 receptions. At that, we'd be lucky if Munt gets to 8 or 12 yards in this one. When we look at the kickers, single game slate, we're coming up to 14 minutes on this video. I feel good about what we've said so far. When we look at Chase or Greg Joseph, nothing really jumps off the page here. Kickers are kickers. If I had to choose a side, it would probably be the Minnesota Vikings kicker, Greg Joseph, just for the fact that I have him kicking 1 extra point. I have him and Chase McLaughlin at both, the same amount of field goals, 1 for 2 field goals, something along those lines. And it gets a little more, not dicey, but interesting again with the DSTs. Do I want anything to do with the Colts DST? Not necessarily, but they are 8-5 on FanDuel, 3-6 on DK, 1 or 2 sacks. I do have the Colts for an interception. Kirk, not that Kirk is going to just, zone out and throw an interception, but how many times have we seen these receivers, Justin Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne, all running amok on the field? And more than likely, what if Kirk Cousins throws a pass behind? It's a tip ball, a tip drill right into the Colts' hand here, because their secondary is pretty dang good. On the Viking side of things, it is very juicy because the Indianapolis Colts are dead last against giving giving away points to the opposing DST. So the Vikings, 9-5 on FanDuel, 4-6 on DK. We're looking at 3 to 4 sacks. I do have the Vikings, intercepting a pass as well. So I love that idea. Let me go over some quick betting trends and I'll get you the heck out of here. And listen, we're just getting started. Baltimore, Cleveland video is next. Miami at Buffalo, the snow game. What can we expect there? We'll wait for, more news and notes and weather to come out. And what are we going to do in that one? Hang here. I got you. I promise. When we look at the Indianapolis Colts, they're 2-5 against the spread their last 7 games. The under has cashed in 8 of the Colts' last 10 games on the road. Minnesota, 3-9 against the spread in the last 12 games versus an opponent with a losing record. The over has cashed in 5 of the Minnesota Vikings' last 6 games at home. And truth be told, when we look at this one, let me slide over. The Minnesota Vikings can clinch the North with this one. I do believe they win 31-20, something along those lines. The Vikings will win. They will score 3 to 4 times in any form or fashion. Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. I mean, to be honest with you, this game to me, I rarely say this because it makes me sound like an egomaniac or like I know it all. I don't. But this game to me, Minnesota, it's a softball. It's a meatball. It's a pitch right down the middle, and it's there for us to hit a home run here. So we're going to start our studs here like JT, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and we're going to mix and match pieces like Michael Pittman, even Kyle Granson. I mean, whatever you want to do here. But to me, Minnesota in this game is a home run from DFS perspective. But one more thing I will say right now, the Vikings have covered their number in the last 5 of their last 8 games and 46 times their last 67 games. Right now, Minnesota scoring around 24 total points per game, which is 10th best in the NFL, while the Colts are next to dead last in terms of giving up points and scoring points themselves, only 16.1 points a game. So give me the Minnesota Vikings to win 31-20 as the Indianapolis Colts kind of overachieve a bit by 4 or 5 points, but hey, we got it all written down and in stone here. So be good, be safe, and I'll see you soon when we talk about Baltimore and Cleveland. Give me the Vikings to win the North 31-20. I will see you quickly. Bye-bye.